Tonight's talk is compassion, not a word that I use very often, but something that I try to practice all the time. And it's something that it occurs for me like I need a lot of practice with it, although I believe that it is our most natural state, and I believe that really what needs to happen is just let go of everything in between. So I'll get into that more later on. But the challenge of the week for our internal challenge in the dojo is to practice compassion meditation. And I am going to invite you guys to actually do this as at least part of your meditation tonight. But the meditation can take on many different forms. There are thousands of styles of meditation, and there are many different styles of compassion meditation. The one that I will kind of point you to is certainly not the only one. It might not be the best one for you, but it is just a very basic practice of holding someone in your mind, somebody who you are close to, somebody who you can feel compassion for, somebody who can really understand what they're going through, somebody who you can recognize and appreciate their suffering and their non-suffering, what their experience is in life, to be able to truly connect on a deep level with that person. You hold them in your mind, and you feel that compassion for them, and maybe recognize it as a physical sensation. You might feel something in your heart. You might just have, thoughts or memories come up, emotions come up for you. But you start off with somebody who you can easily feel that compassion for, and then you try to widen the circle to the next group of people, somebody who you're not quite as close to, somebody who you might have a harder time feeling that connection and compassion for, but you really carry that same kind of emotional state, that same kind of sensitivity and connection into that next circle of people. So maybe the first group you start with is your family, or the people that you really have great close relationships with, and then you work into more distant friends, maybe people you haven't seen in a little bit of time. Then you work into people who you're kind of more indifferent to, people at work, or people who you just see every once in a while, people who you're more just like acquaintances with. And then widen the circle more and more and more and more until we get to the point where you are able to feel compassion while you're sitting there. You're visualizing the whole world. You're visualizing all of creation. You're feeling compassion for aliens and stars and everything. And this is, on some level, just connecting to reality. Give me that phone, man. I'm going to give this. I'm only 50% sure that this is actually an Albert Einstein quote, but it is what I have read as an Albert Einstein quote. And scientists are not famous for being compassionate and talking about it, but here's at least one quote. A human being is a part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion, to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. And then you can take that back from me. Thank you, ma'am. I'm not going to argue with Einstein. I think that's a great idea. The thing that keeps us from our natural state, which I believe is compassion, is some sort of delusion. It is an illusion. It is the misconception that we are separate from each other, that we're separate from groups of people who we purposefully separate ourselves from, whether it be in the tribal sense, politics, where you grew up, whatever else, whether it be even separating yourself from people who you would like to be very close to, people who you're in a relationship with. We have a tendency to keep these walls between us and everybody else, even if it's a very thin wall, even if you can, at times, really understand what that person is going through. We usually have a tendency to return to this way of thinking of each other as being separate from each other. But this is one of the great things that is available to us through our meditation practice, is to really let those walls break down, to be vulnerable, to really experience somebody else fully. And it is something that we should be practicing in the dojo with our partners. So you hardly ever hear me use the word opponent. I never use the word enemy because it's way too dramatic. But from time to time I'll use the word opponent, but it's never in relation to the person who you're practicing with in the dojo. I only use the word opponent when I'm talking about the reason that I don't use the word opponent. So we always use the word partner. And for you, it might seem like semantics. It's like, it's the person who I'm punching and kicking. It's the person who I'm grappling with. It's the person who's teaching me. It's the person who's standing in front of me in class. That's my partner. That's my opponent. Whatever. It's the same thing. It is not the same thing. And language is incredibly powerful, and we want to recognize this. And when we call somebody our partner, it helps us to treat them in that way. And when we are able to do this in the dojo, first of all, this is usually with somebody who we have no other relationship with. We have no prior relationship with somebody who we just line up, we bow to them, and then we start practicing. And maybe we're doing a drill that is very simple, like we're allowing them to throw us. Maybe we're doing an even simpler drill, we're just holding a mitt for them. Maybe we're doing something that's very complicated, very dynamic and even dangerous, like sparring or free grappling. It is of the utmost importance for our safety that we treat each other as partners, not as opponents. Because if you allow yourself to think of the other person as somebody who you are trying to beat, then it is a very short trip to, I don't care about them at all. I'm not interested in keeping them safe. I'm only interested in my experience. I'm only interested in me looking good and me winning right now. I'm interested in me getting better. I don't care about the other person. That's how you treat an opponent. We never want to treat each other that way. On a very simple level, because if we are always just trying to, stuff down the other partners in the dojo and be the best, then we will never ourselves or our partners live up to our highest potential. What we actually want to do is bring each other along and prop each other up and get all of the students in class along with us to reach our highest potential, to be as great as we possibly can be. And if I get my partner to be great, then my partner is going to be able to be more of a challenge for me, and they're going to help me get great. And this works in both directions. Of course, that means that my partner needs to be helping me get better. My partner needs to be treating me as a partner. But I also mean that if I am helping my partner, they're going to be naturally helping me. And I mean that by helping them, I'm not just going easy on them. I'm challenging my partner. I'm pushing them. I'm finding what their limit is and then pushing them a little bit more. Now, this is one of the most important places to practice compassion and to practice being totally connected to each other, because you don't know what your partner is capable of unless you are right there with them. If you put yourself in their shoes and you are letting go of your own desires and your own experience and just be there right with that person, then you'll be able to recognize what they're going through in this moment. You'll be able to recognize how far you can push them. You'll be able to recognize when they need something from you. And if we're able to do that for them, of course we're setting a great example, and they'll do the same thing for us. They'll do the same thing for other partners. But it is one of the most rich and rewarding parts of our practice to be a great partner, to bring somebody else along with us, to help somebody become great, to connect with them on a level that you hardly ever get a chance to connect to other people on. And the physical nature of our practice is going to cause you to connect with people in a way that you have never connected with somebody else. And I mean, they might punch you or you might punch them. But I mean, you're grappling with somebody, you're practicing techniques where you're very close. I mean, you're right there, like tangled with somebody. And you're either going to get comfortable with that or not, and you're going to quit, right? But the opportunity there to connect with somebody physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, on a deep, deep level is so hugely beneficial for our partners and for us. And this is something that we can and must bring out into the rest of our lives. And it's much less likely that somebody outside the dojo is going to throw a punch or a kick at us. Possible, but it is much more likely that these partners outside of the dojo will be attacking us verbally, emotionally, and just like in the dojo, if you're sparring with somebody and they hit you, your response is to hit back. Your natural response is to go, oh! And you get kind of pushed into this adrenalized state where your lizard brain just wants you to fight back. And this is something that we practice recognizing and being able to let go of in favor of being a great partner. And it is no different outside the dojo. In fact, the people who you are the closest with will probably be the people who push your buttons the most, the people who, without even trying, will make you the most angry. And it is with these people that we need to practice the most compassion. So, a simple example that I use all the time, which is not going to happen with people that you are the closest to in your life, is you're driving down the street, you're driving down the freeway, you're on the 405 or the 10 or the 110 or any number of torturous paths that you can take from the dojo, and you're just humming along, minding your own business, somebody swerves in front of you and cuts you off. And your natural reaction, unless you've practiced otherwise, will be some form of freaking out, and it will probably entail thoughts that sound like, what the is your problem? How dare you? What is wrong with you, you idiot? And I have found myself, even recently, I'm not too proud to admit it, having those thoughts towards people on the street. And while that might very well be your gut reaction and the first thing that you respond with, even with practice, we want to be able to at least make the next thing that goes through our mind some degree of compassion. It probably won't take you very long to remember the last time that you drove like an idiot, the last time that you had to cut somebody off for whatever reason, right? You're really in a hurry and you cannot be bothered to think about what other people are doing on the freeway. Somebody's pulling into your lane, so you got to pull into the next lane. Whatever it is, you can come up with a time in the recent past where you did something very similar to, if not exactly the same thing, that this idiot is doing. You remind yourself of the last time that you were an idiot, and then you can have compassion for this idiot. And this is what it's all about. We got to just remind ourselves of our own, history, our own experiences, our own shortcomings, and it is not very difficult to be able to put yourself in the shoes of this other person and have some compassion for them and recognize that we're not perfect. We've done the same thing, so we got to give the other person a little bit of leeway. It is often much more complicated, sticky, when you're talking about somebody who you're in a relationship with. I had a recent experience with my lovely wife who she and I have known each other for a couple of years now, and we are starting to really be good at pushing each other's buttons, and we'll get into a couple of conversations that can start to get heated. And whereas I am more often great at practicing compassion and just listening to somebody else's experience, and somebody else can be really firing on all cylinders, I don't take it personally. But when it's my wife, I have a tendency to take it a little bit more personally. And you guys might have had a similar experience in relationships in your life, where this person, of all people, how could you? And the way that we just respond to this person, and these people are often the most deserving, the most needing of our compassion. And compassion, what I've learned from my relationship, is first and foremost just listening and understanding. And you might not say the right thing, you might not do the right thing, but if you can at the very least start with listening and understanding whatever that person is going through. This is the most basic, most important thing that we can build everything else onto. And you know me, I love to talk, and it is one of my favorite things to do, to slide right back into that Sifu mode where it's like she's telling me about her day and all the bad things that she's been dealing with, and I'm like, all right, let me handle this with some wisdom and tell you all the things that you need to do to change your life, and da-da-da-da. She doesn't want to hear that from me. And most people in your life don't want to hear from you either. All they want is for you to listen and understand them. And if you truly do listen and understand, then they will be more open to hearing what you have to say. You'll be able to word it and approach it in a much better way. But I think one of the reasons that it can be so difficult to connect on that level, even with the people that we are the closest to, is because we bring in so much of our past, our attachments and our baggage. Maybe it's from other relationships, maybe it's just from our day, it's from somebody that we had to deal with earlier that day, and we bring that into what's happening in this moment where it serves no purpose. The only purpose it serves is to get in our way and mess us up, to be in the way of that compassion, to be in the way of that connection. So the more history you have with somebody, the more often you'll find you slipping into that, like, yeah, I remember when you said this, and now you're saying the opposite, or however this shows up the most often for you. And we all have these dumb ways that we slide back into with our people in our lives. Instagram just did something totally weird. Okay, I don't know what's going on with this. Why don't you mess with this, please, ma'am? In any case, I'm going to keep talking to the Facebook people and the Zoom people. So when you find yourself in that situation, why don't you go ahead and take this away and do what you can do with it. Thank you. And let me fix this now. When you find yourself kind of sliding back into this, like this inability to listen, this inability to understand, it's super important to recognize what that's coming from. It's coming from something that we are putting in the way. And it could be something that has been stewing for a while. Could be something that we keep telling ourselves, like, you know, why can't she just get over it? She keeps bringing it up and over again. I've got several of those conversations with my wife. But it might be something that has little or nothing to do with this other person. It is just something that we kind of drag in there and we keep in between us, and the only thing that there is to do for us, the only thing standing in the way of that compassionate connection, that understanding on the deepest level, is to just let go. And we've got to let go of the things that we're so sure about this other person. We've got to let go of the intense need to protect ourselves and to keep ourselves separate. So to be really compassionate is to be vulnerable, to be able to let somebody else in, and to be able to let go of this shell or these walls that we build up so that we can't really connect to that person. It's scary, and it should be scary. And the truth is, we will not and probably should not have the same kind of vulnerability and complete breaking down of barriers with every single person in the world. We only have so much, time in this life, and there are people who will take huge advantage of that. But we got to recognize when it's possible and when we can do it in a way that's safe and sustainable and that is going to be great for us and the other person. And the dojo is a great example of a place to practice this, because this is a safe place. Even though you are going to get punched at and you're going to get kicked at, it is one of the safest places that you will ever encounter in your life, because we're all here for the same reasons. And I know this because if somebody's here for the wrong reasons, they don't stay as students. They either get kindly ushered out, or they realize that this is just way too deep of a practice for them. So to be here and to allow yourself to connect with somebody who is just a total stranger, but connect on the level of your practice, what you're sharing, connect on the level of really being able to look at them and see what they're going through today, to put yourself in their shoes. The really great simple example of this is somebody grabs me. Let's say Tim's my partner. So your partner we'll do this so that these people can see. He grabs me, and I'm standing over here, totally unable to see why he's so upset that he would be grabbing me, right? But then if I throw him and I put myself in this, I can see why he's upset. Thank you, sir. So that's a silly way of looking at it, but on another level, super deep and impactful. If I can actually see things from their point of view, and it is sometimes actually the physical point of view of that person, but more importantly, on a deeper level, how can I connect to this person's experience? How can I connect to what their emotional point of view is right now? What they're dragging into it, the same way that we drag into this experience. So being able to see things from the other person's point of view will allow you to open up and to feel more safe with that vulnerability, to allow yourself to open up and to connect to this person in a way that earlier on seemed impossible. So meditation, even the simple, basic breathing meditation that we practice where we just sit and breathe, helps us with this tremendously. Because what is it? It's a practice of non-attachment. We let go of the extra thoughts. We let go of the baggage that we bring into those interactions. And we just we're there, and we're relaxed, and we're breathing, and we're focusing on the moment. In this present moment, if you're relaxed and you're just open, then the whole universe is there for you. And in that person standing across from you is an entire world, an entire lifetime to connect to and experience and marvel at. When you're sitting in meditation, you're just there marveling with your own universe. At first, you're just rattling around the thoughts in your skull, but then you want to expand that, right? Let that go and feel yourself really connect with as much as you can. So I was talking about this with a compassion meditation where we try to widen the circle of our compassion. We try to allow ourselves to feel that way about more and more and more people. Even without the compassion meditation piece, just sitting, your consciousness should be having this expansive experience. You might actually have sometimes a physical feeling of widening and expanding, and that's great. Don't be attached to it. Don't feel like you have to find that. But at the very least, your consciousness can spread out with your breath. And it's a very interesting thing because you're simultaneously going in and experiencing the minutia, the tiniest pieces of your experience. You want to feel the breath and how it spreads through your body, the subtle vibrations or sensations in your body, the subtleties of your mind moving and then coming back to the breath. And it's this very curious paradox where the deeper we go within, the more expansive our experience will be, and we'll be able to experience everything. And I love the idea that with every breath, we can take in an entire lifetime. We can take in an entire universe. It is all about our mental, our ability basically to put things into that perspective. And if you're sitting with the perspective of, I'm just sitting here to calm myself down and to kind of, let go of the stress of the day, that's fine, but that's all you're going to get out of it. If you're sitting with the perspective of allowing all of this experience to come in and just wash over you, to allow yourself to just sink into every moment and experience it in its fullest, then this is enlightenment. This is how to experience your highest self. And this is where we're going to find compassion for ourselves. We've got to get in touch with what's going on a deep level. We've got to recognize our thoughts and our emotional states and just dive into that. It's very difficult to have compassion for somebody else if you can't have it for yourself. And the same is true the opposite way. It's very difficult to have compassion for yourself if you can't have it for somebody else. I think that's the opposite of what I said. It is always a two-way street. So practice compassion wherever you can find it, in meditation, in everyday life, in your practice, wherever it is. And recognize it as a function of letting go of yourself, of allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Recognize it as a function of being totally in the present, of letting go of all the baggage that you drag into this moment, and to possibly be a function of practice, of just practicing the state of mind and this intention of looking as deeply as you can into both yourself and into somebody else. And the more we practice it, the more it will just naturally come up for us. So let's do that right now. Sit comfortably.